So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Paul Emerson, as said, Head of School for Wales, a Specialist Advisor on the portfolio, who's going to take us through what that looks like in the modified portfolio. Thanks, Paul. Over to you.
Thanks, Ross. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. I'm going to try and share my screen now. Okay. Presentation. So, as Ross said, I'm Paul Emerson, Head of School for Wales, Specialist Advisor for Portfolio Online. So I've worked on the Portfolio Online committee for about the last 4 or 5 years. And actually, I was on there as a trainee as well. So I've been with the portfolio a long time, and this is by far the biggest piece of work that we've had to do in that time. So the portfolio is kind of constantly evolving, but this is, a kind of a major change. The main sort of change from a trainee's point of view with the new curriculum is how the placement-specific PDP is going to be used, and it's going to be key to kind of driving trainees' learning. So I'm just going to go through how the placement-specific PDP might work for trainees and supervisors. So one thing to say is that there are some sort of mock PDPs available on the website where people have kind of gone through them and tried to think about how you might set them up. The point of the placement-specific PDP really is for trainees and trainees to identify things within that job. So within your 6 months or 12 months as a hire trainee, specific bits of that job which will help to achieve the different competencies or capabilities of it. So this is how they're kind of split up. So on this page, you can see a kind of a draft one. So here we're just looking at one of the HLOs, it's HLO 1. And the key capabilities within it. Those are the first 2 columns, and the third column then is the activity, and this is the activity that is specific to that job, which is going to help the trainee to show that they're competent in the, or to learn competency and then show competency in that area. And here, obviously, they put about acting as a patient advocate by attending a particular clinic. The next column then is around evidence, and this is how the trainee is going to show that they've achieved that competency. And there's various ways that trainees can do that, and we're all familiar with workplace-based assessment, but trainees might use reflection and other sorts of reports as well. The last 2 columns are around sort of update. So as you go through the placement, to catch up with the trainee and find out how they've been doing, to write some comments, and then in the end of the placement, to sort of say whether the person has achieved that competency or that capability or not. So now we'll just sort of show you how that works on the actual portfolio. So when you go onto a trainee's portfolio, this is what they see on their sort of first page. And what the trainee would do is click onto the PDP section, and it will come up with their PDP. This first box up here, it kind of gives you the basic background or information on the basic sort of job. Click on the edit button, then the trainee can change those things. So this bit here was this PDP framework, and that's the curriculum that you're measuring against. So core training or higher specialty adult training or whatever it might be. So it's a drop-down menu, and you can click on that and click which curriculum it is. These things here, the proposed progress plan and the professional development sessions. So the development sessions are the special interest sessions, and those are for higher training purposes, only not for core trainees particularly. And it's just to show so the trainee can record what they're doing in those. The proposed progress plan is for the trainee to kind of think ahead, think about what their next jobs might be, or what's coming up in the sort of future years. Okay, so once the trainee's filled all those things in, here we've just filled it into the selected framework for core psychiatry, and we haven't put in the progress plan and development sessions. Then below that, you can see the actual HLOs. Here you can just see the top ones, 1 and 2, but actually there are 9, obviously. So if you, let me go a bit slightly expanded view of that. If you click onto you can see there's a little I button at the side of the HLOs, and if you click on the I button, then it will tell you what the actual HLO is. We've just done that to sort of make the form a bit shorter on the screen rather than have everything listed all at once. So there's sort of drop-down menus and explodable things like that. If you actually want to then put in an activity. So actually sort of fill your PDP in. What you do is look down the list, pick the HLO and then the key capability that you're looking at. Click on the new post activity button, and what I'll do is go through to this form, which lists all the key capabilities for that heading. So here I've chosen one of the clinical ones, so 2.2, and key capability 6 here is around pharmacology. So we would select that one, and it will go into that box. You then click create new activity, and you come to this form. So the top of the form just kind of gives you the background information. So it tells you which framework, so which curriculum you're using, which HLO and which theme, and then which key capability. So that's all at the top of the form. Then you get to fill in the planned activity and the evidence parts. The planned activity, as I said, is specific to this job. What specifically in this job are you going to use to show this capability? And here I've given just an example. So this is a pharmacology one. So attending new patient clinics on Mondays and Thursdays, prescribing appropriate medications for a range of diagnoses, initiating and reviewing different types of medication. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. What specifically in this job is going to help you? And then in terms of the evidence, I've sort of thought about what you might use for those evidence. So obviously the standard kind of workplace-based assessments like the ACEs, mini ACEs and CVDs, but also things like pharmacology, passing your papers, and maybe things like case logs and reflections would be useful too. So once you fill those things in, you'd save that and it will appear on your front screen set out like this essentially. You can go back and edit it and change it. They're not kind of fixed by clicking the edit button, and it will come out and you can change what's on there. What you want to do then is for the trainee to be able to show that they are achieving these things. They can link bits of evidence to the PDP. So here we're just going to show this using a workplace-based assessment. If the trainee's got a workplace-based assessment that relates back to this PDP item, they can select that workplace-based assessment. Now the workplace-based assessments are going to be slightly different, and John's going to run through this in more detail, so I won't go into it too much. But the workplace-based assessments will relate, the assessment headings will relate back to the HLOs essentially. But so John will talk about that in a bit more detail. So when you go into your piece of evidence, like I said here, it's a workplace-based assessment. The trainee has the option to click this map, this workplace-based assessment to one or more capabilities. And if they click that, then you get a drop-down menu of your active PDP capabilities. I've only got one on here because this is just a mock one, but you have all the ones that you've filled in at the beginning of your placement as you're going along. And then if the trainee wants to link that piece of evidence to a particular PDP item, all they have to do is click that radio button on the side so that it turns green. And then when you go back to the PDP, it will show that you've mapped an activity to it, and you can see that down there, just below the sort of PDP information. As a supervisor, you can obviously view your trainee's PDP, and if you want to actually look at the piece of evidence, they hyperlink through. So if you click onto that that mapped activity button, then you'll be able to view the actual piece of evidence. So obviously, if the trainee has collected bits of evidence that you haven't personally filled in, you can go back and review it just to make sure that the trainee is doing okay. Once the trainee has gathered enough evidence and in supervision you've agreed that item is complete, there is a complete button, and if you click the complete button, then it will sort of tick and show completed. What you can also do is on the right hand side here where it says update on progress and future actions, you and the trainee can write free text comments, and again, when you're reviewing these things through supervision sessions, then the expectation would be that you're reviewing it and giving sort of like feedback to the trainee as to things that they need to do. So I've just put in an example one there. So when the trainees achieve the capability, I've just put in a comment saying the trainees achieved the capability as evidenced by the workplace-based assessments. But you might write the trainee has partially achieved this capability, needs to do extra work, or the trainee might sort of write something else in around what else they need to do. So with these comments, both the trainee and the trainer can put the comments in, they are editable, but only by the person who wrote them. So the trainee can't delete a comment if you put in something they don't like, and you can't edit the trainee's comment either. When you come to the end of the year, each HLO on the PDP has this drop-down menu, which is performance at the end of the placement. So at the end of the year, you just click that drop-down menu and it gives you the 4 options: insufficient evidence, approaching the level, at the level, or above the level. So this is kind of replacing the part of the psychiatric supervisor report, which was exceptionally long when you went through all the 19 learning objectives and sort of commented on all of them. You should be able to do this pretty quickly using this kind of drop-down menu. The idea of that is that when you come to this filling in the psychiatric supervisor report, this information will just draw straight through from the PDP and pre-populate that part of the psychiatric supervisor report. So I think this looks like it's going to be really time-consuming and a lot of work. And certainly setting up a PDP is going to be work kind of early on in the placement and also as you go through. But the kind of the payoff for it is that actually for the trainee, it really helps them to structure their learning and structure their training. So if you use the PDP well, as you go through the placement, you'll be ticking off those items and getting them completed, and it'll be very obvious to the trainee about what they need to do next. When you come to ARCP time, there shouldn't be any concerns around sort of showing your competencies. It should all be there essentially, and it should be very easy. So at the end of the year, there should be less kind of stress and scrubbing around trying to make sure you've got everything done. For trainers, the real payoff is in the psychiatric supervisor report. Having filled in psychiatric supervisor reports over the last few years, they are very long and very difficult. And I think trainees and trainers find them very frustrating. And this should take away a lot of that. Essentially, you're filling the report in as you go. And at the end of the year, it should all just pre-populate and kind of be there, essentially. So whilst it looks like a lot of work, it's actually not that difficult to fill in. It's largely for the trainee to do and then kind of bring to you as trainers to review. So it shouldn't be particularly onerous for trainers, and it should really help both trainees and trainers get the trainee through their placement. So it should be beneficial from that side. Again, just in terms of questions, obviously there'll be Q&A sessions in this session today, but there'll be lots of opportunities to ask questions kind of along the way.